At my niece's Sweet 16 I paid for, Mom said it was cheap, so I stopped paying bills. My sister Amber called me in January asking if I could help with her daughter Riley's Sweet 16 party in March. She said they were tight on money after moving into a bigger apartment and couldn't afford much of a celebration. Riley was a good kid who helped me move furniture last summer without complaining, so I said I'd cover the party. I started small by booking the community center for $400. Then Amber mentioned Riley really wanted a DJ, so I paid $800 for that. Then she said Riley's friends were expecting decorations, so I spent $350 on balloons and streamers and a custom banner. The cake was another $200. Food for 50 people came to $600. Party favors were $180. Photo booth rental was $450. I kept saying yes because I wanted Riley to have a nice party, and every time I agreed to something new, Amber would hug me and say I was the best brother ever. By the time the party rolled around, I'd spent $2,980 on my niece's Sweet 16. I didn't tell Amber the total because I didn't want her to feel bad. The party was beautiful. Riley cried happy tears when she walked in and saw everything. Her friends were taking pictures constantly. The DJ was playing all the right songs. I stood in the corner, watching everyone have fun and felt genuinely good about spending the money. Then my mother showed up late, took one look around, and pulled me aside near the punch table. "This is what you paid for?" Her voice was sharp and judgmental. I told her I'd covered the whole thing, and she made this disappointed face I'd seen my entire life. "This looks cheap, Steven. The decorations are from Party City. The food is just sandwiches and chips. Where's the real catering? Where are the professional photographers?" I felt my stomach drop. I'd spent almost $3,000. Money I'd been saving for a new laptop I desperately needed for work. Mom kept going. "Riley's friends are probably posting on social media right now about how low budget this party is. You should have done it properly or not done it at all." Amber overheard and jumped in to defend me, saying I'd been incredibly generous. But Mom cut her off. Generous would have been hiring an actual event planner and renting a real venue, not the community center where they host bingo on Thursdays. If you can't afford to do something right, you shouldn't volunteer. I spent the rest of the party feeling humiliated. Every time I looked at the decorations, all I could see was cheap. When I got home that night, I looked at my bank account. I'd been supplementing Mom's rent for the past 2 years, $850 a month, because she claimed her retirement wasn't enough to cover her apartment in the nice part of town. I'd also been paying her car insurance at $190 a month and her phone bill at $95 a month. That was $1,135 every single month going to my mother, who just called my $3,000 gift cheap and embarrassing. I canceled the automatic transfers that night. All of them. I didn't call her to explain. I just stopped paying. 2 weeks later, Mom called asking why her rent payment had bounced. I told her I couldn't afford to do things properly, so I decided not to do them at all. Using her exact words back at her, she immediately started backtracking, saying she hadn't meant it that way, that she was just trying to give constructive criticism. I let her talk for 5 minutes before hanging up. Amber called the next day saying Mom was furious and threatening to take me out of her will. I said that was fine because I didn't want anything from someone who treated my generosity like garbage. Mom called me selfish and ungrateful, said I was punishing her for being honest. She showed up at my apartment demanding we talk it out, but I didn't answer the door. My aunt got involved and said I was being petty, that Mom was just old-fashioned and had high standards, that I shouldn't let one comment ruin our relationship. But it wasn't one comment. It was 20 years of nothing I did ever being good enough. 20 years of her criticizing my choices while depending on my money to maintain her lifestyle. The calls and texts continued for weeks. Mom said her landlord was threatening eviction if she didn't catch up on rent. Amber begged me to at least cover this month so Mom didn't end up homeless. But I held firm. 3 months after I stopped paying, something happened that made me realize Mom's financial troubles weren't what I thought they were at all, and that's when things took a turn I never expected. The night after Riley's party, I couldn't sleep. Mom's words kept echoing in my head, each syllable a needle under my skin. Asterisk, "This looks cheap, Steven." Asterisk, I sat at my kitchen table at 3 a.m., laptop open, staring at my bank account. I'd never actually calculated how much I was giving Mom each month. It just started with helping her with rent, temporarily after Dad died. Then somehow her car insurance became my responsibility. Then her phone bill. Each request came with a story about how her fixed income wasn't stretching far enough, how inflation was eating away at her retirement. I pull up my transaction history and start a spreadsheet. $1,135 per month for 2 years. That's $27,240 I've handed over to someone who just humiliated me in front of my family for not spending enough on a party that cost me nearly $3,000. My hands are shaking as I type the numbers. I've been putting off buying a new laptop for 6 months because my current one freezes during client presentations. I've been eating ramen 3 nights a week to save money. Meanwhile, Mom's living in Oakwood Heights, where rent starts at $1,800 a month, and I've been subsidizing it without question. The next morning, I call my bank and request statements going back 3 years. When they arrive, I spread them across my dining table and highlight every payment to Mom. The yellow streaks across the pages look like crime scene tape marking the death of my savings account. It's been exactly 2 weeks since I canceled the transfers when my phone lights up with Mom's name. I consider letting it go to voicemail, but some masochistic part of me wants to hear what she has to say. "Steven, there must be some mistake with the rent payment. The landlord says it bounced." Her voice is casual, like she's reporting a minor inconvenience rather than the consequence of her own actions. "No mistake," I say, my voice steadier than I expected. "I can't afford to do things properly, so I've decided not to do them at all." There's a long pause. I can almost see her processing the familiar words. "What are you talking about?" she finally asks. "Those were your exact words at Riley's party. Remember, when you told me I shouldn't volunteer if I can't afford to do something right?" "Oh, Steven," she sighs, like I'm a child missing an obvious point. "I was just trying to give you helpful advice. I didn't mean anything by it." I say, "That's what I spent on that cheap party, and $1,135 is what I've been giving you every month for years. I think I'll be keeping my money from now on." "You can't just," she starts, but I interrupt. "I can, and I have. Goodbye, Mom." I hang up feeling lighter than I have in years. The reprieve lasts less than an hour before Amber calls. "Steven, what the hell?" she demands. "Mom just called me crying. She says you've cut her off completely." "That's right. Because of one comment at the party? Are you serious?" I close my eyes and count to 3. It wasn't one comment, Amber. It was the last in a lifetime of comments. Did you know I've been paying her rent, car insurance, and phone bill for over 2 years? That's money I don't have. But she needs that money to survive. Does she? Or does she need it to live in a luxury apartment complex and criticize everyone around her? I'm done, Amber. I'm just done. Amber's voice softens. Look, I understand you're hurt, but please reconsider. She's going to lose her apartment. Then she can downsize like the rest of us have to when we can't afford something. After we hang up, the texts from mom start rolling in. At first, they're angry. Asterisk. How dare you treat your mother this way after everything I've done for you? Asterisk. Then pleading. Asterisk. Please, Steven, I don't know what I'll do without your help. Asterisk. Then manipulative. Asterisk. I guess I'll just have to live on the street at my age. Asterisk. I don't respond to any of them. 3 days later, a novel-length text arrives. Asterisk. The landlord gave me notice today. I have 30 days to pay or be evicted. Is that what you want? Your elderly mother homeless because you're too sensitive to take constructive criticism? I raised you better than this, Steven. I sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay me? By abandoning me when I need you most? What would your father say if he could see you now? Asterisk. That's when I block her number. The relief is immediate and profound. Like setting down a weight I've been carrying so long I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body. I use some of the money I'm no longer sending to mom to order the new laptop I've needed for months. When it arrives, I run my fingers over its sleek surface and think about how many more of these I could have bought with $27,240. 3 days after blocking mom's number, Aunt Martha called. I almost didn't answer, assuming mom had recruited her as reinforcement, but Martha had always been the reasonable one in the family. Steven, honey, your mother says you've stopped talking to her, she said, her voice carrying that gentle southern lilt that somehow made everything sound like a suggestion rather than an accusation. That's right, I replied, settling onto my couch. I'm guessing she didn't tell you why. She mentioned something about you being upset over a comment at Riley's party, said you were being sensitive. I let out a humorless laugh. Did she tell you what the comment was? That the $2,980 party I paid for looked cheap? That I shouldn't have bothered if I couldn't do it properly? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. She didn't mention the amount, Martha finally said, or that you paid for everything yourself. Of course she didn't. Just like she probably didn't mention I've been paying her rent, car insurance, and phone bill for over 2 years. $1,135 every month, Martha. Money I don't have to spare. I heard Martha sigh deeply. Your mother has always been judgmental. Even as a child, nothing was ever quite good enough. Your grandmother used to say Eleanor came out of the womb with a rating system already in her head. We talked for nearly an hour. I explained everything. The years of criticism, the financial strain, the moment at Riley's party that finally broke me. Martha listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of understanding. I can't say I blame you, she said when I finished. But be prepared. Your mother is already telling everyone who'll listen that you've abandoned her in her time of need. The text started arriving from various family members the next day. Cousin Michael, asterisk. How could you leave your mom to be evicted? Asterisk Uncle James, asterisk. Your father would be ashamed, asterisk. Even my second cousin Brenda, who I hadn't spoken to in years, asterisk. Family takes care of family, period, asterisk. I didn't respond to any of them. What was the point? Mom had already spun her narrative, and they'd chosen to believe it without hearing my side. The only message that mattered came from Riley, asterisk Uncle Steven. I just wanted to say thank you again for my party. It was literally perfect, and all my friends keep talking about how awesome it was. The DJ played all my favorite songs, and the photo booth pics are already on my wall. Love you so much, asterisk. I stared at those words for a long time, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. This was why I'd spent the money, not for mom's approval, but for Riley's happiness. I sent back a simple reply, asterisk. Love you too, kiddo. I'm glad you had fun, asterisk. A month passed. I heard through Amber that mom had received an official eviction notice after missing her second month's rent. I felt a twinge of guilt but pushed it away. She was an adult. She had retirement income. She could figure it out. Then one Saturday afternoon, Amber showed up at my door unannounced. Her eyes were puffy like she'd been crying. Can I come in? She asked, her voice small. I stepped aside to let her enter, noticing how exhausted she looked. We sat at my kitchen table, and I pushed a mug of coffee toward her. Mom's in real trouble, Steven, she said after taking a sip. The landlord gave her until the end of the week to vacate. She has nowhere to go. She can downsize, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Find a place she can actually afford with her retirement. Amber shook her head. That's just it. I've been helping her look, and we discovered something concerning. She pulled out her phone and opened a banking app. Mom asked me to help her figure out her finances. Look at this. She slid the phone across to me. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Dozens of transactions to high-end department stores. Nordstrom, Saks, Neiman Marcus. Hundreds of dollars each time. Keep scrolling, Amber said quietly. I did. The spending pattern was consistent going back months. Expensive restaurants, spa treatments, designer boutiques. She's been spending almost all her retirement income on luxury items, Amber said, while telling us she could barely make ends meet. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Mom hadn't needed my money for survival. She'd needed it to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford and didn't want to give up. She's been lying to us, I said, my voice hollow, for years. Amber nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I confronted her about it. She said she deserved nice things after raising us alone, that supporting her was the least we could do. 2 weeks later, Mom's car was repossessed. Without my monthly payments covering her insurance, she'd fallen behind there too. Amber called to tell me, her voice a mixture of frustration and worry. She's blaming you, of course, she said. Says you knew exactly what would happen when you stopped paying. I did, I admitted. That's how consequences work, Steven. No, Amber, I'm done enabling her. She lied to us for years while criticizing everything we did. She can figure this out on her own. The family reunion in May became ground zero for the battle. I almost didn't go, but Amber convinced me I shouldn't let Mom's behavior isolate me from everyone else. Big mistake. I walked into Aunt Martha's backyard to find Mom holding court near the grill, surrounded by sympathetic relatives. She looked up when I entered, her face immediately transforming into a mask of martyred suffering. There he is, she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. My son, who decided his own mother doesn't deserve a roof over her head. The gathering fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I felt my face burning, but kept my expression neutral as I walked toward the drinks table. Uncle James stepped into my path. You need to make this right, Steven. She's your mother. Did she tell you about her shopping habits? I asked calmly. The spa days and designer clothes she was buying while I paid her rent? Confusion flickered across his face. What are you talking about? Ask her to show you her credit card statements, I said, reaching around him for a soda. Then we can talk about what anyone deserves. The afternoon devolved from there. Family members took sides, voices were raised, and eventually Aunt Martha had to physically position herself between Mom and me when the accusations became too personal. You've always been selfish, Mom hissed across the potato salad, just like your father. And you've always been manipulative, I replied, except now you don't have my money to fund your manipulation. I left early, ignoring the whispers that followed me to my car. As I pulled out of Martha's driveway, my phone buzzed with a text from Amber. Asterisk. I'm sorry. This was a disaster. Asterisk. I typed back. Asterisk. Not your fault. But now everyone knows the truth. Asterisk. What I didn't know then was that the real confrontation was still coming. Mom had one more card to play, and she was about to show up at my door to play it. The doorbell rang at 8:17 on a Tuesday evening. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked the peephole first. Mom stood in the hallway, clutching her purse like a life preserver, her face set in that determined expression I'd known my entire life. I considered pretending I wasn't home, but she'd already spotted the light under my door and the shadow of my feet. With a deep sigh, I unlocked the door but didn't open it fully. What do you want? I asked, blocking the entrance with my body. We need to talk, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Face to face. No more of this hiding behind text messages and phone calls. I'm not hiding. I'm establishing boundaries. Please, Stephen. Something in her tone made me pause. It wasn't the manipulative pleading I'd grown accustomed to. It sounded almost genuine. Just 15 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She walked directly to my kitchen table and sat down like she owned the place. Old habits. I've been evicted, she announced without preamble. I have to be out by Friday. Note. I know, Amber told me. And you're just gonna let it happen? She raised her eyebrows, the picture of maternal disappointment. Yes, I said simply. I am. Mom's face flushed. After everything I've done for you, let's talk about what you've done, I interrupted, pulling out my laptop. I've been doing some research since Amber showed me your bank statements. I opened a folder labeled Mom's Finances and turned the screen toward her. On it was a detailed spreadsheet of her retirement income, which I'd pieced together from documents Amber had shared and information I remembered from helping Mom with her taxes 2 years ago. You receive $3,874 per month from Dad's pension and Social Security, I said, pointing to the figure at the top. That's $46,488 per year, more than enough to live comfortably if you budgeted properly. Mom's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. That's private information. You had no right. I had every right after you lied to me for years about needing my help to survive. I clicked to the next tab, which showed a list of her monthly expenses based on the bank statements Amber had found. Nordstrom, $427, Saks, $389, StaySpa, $250, monthly hair appointments, $175. Each item I named seemed to physically shrink her in the chair. And here's the best part, I continued, clicking to a third tab. While you were telling me you couldn't afford your rent without my help, you spent $2,800 on a weekend trip to Scottsdale. The same month you told me your refrigerator was broken and you were eating canned soup. Mom's face had gone from flushed to pale. How did you? Credit card statements don't lie, Mom. Amber found them when she was helping you look for a new place. The silence that filled my apartment was heavier than any I'd ever experienced. Mom stared at the table, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the wood. I deserved nice things, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. At my expense, while criticizing everything I do? You don't understand what it's like to be alone at my age, she said, her voice hardening. Your father left me with nothing. He left you with a pension that pays more than many people make working full-time, I countered. You chose to live beyond your means and lie to your children to maintain it. Mom's eyes flashed. I raised you by myself after your father died. I sacrificed everything. Dad died when I was 23, Mom. I was an adult. And you weren't exactly a single mother struggling to make ends meet when Amber and I were growing up. A knock at the door interrupted whatever she was about to say next. I checked my phone and saw 3 missed texts from Amber saying she was on her way over. I opened the door to find my sister looking anxious. Sorry to barge in, she said, stepping inside. Mom wasn't answering her phone and I got worried. Her voice trailed off as she spotted Mom at my kitchen table. Oh, perfect timing, I said. Mom was just explaining why she deserved to spend my money on spa treatments while I ate ramen 3 nights a week to make ends meet. Amber joined us at the table, looking between Mom and the laptop screen, still displaying the damning financial evidence. I didn't force either of you to help me, Mom said defensively. You offered. After you told us you couldn't afford to live, Amber replied. That's manipulation, Mom. Oh, please, Mom scoffed. If you two weren't so easily manipulated, maybe you'd have learned something useful. You enabled my spending habits. I felt my jaw drop. Are you seriously blaming us for believing our mother when she said she needed help? I raised you to be smarter than that, she snapped. I closed the laptop and opened a drawer, pulling out a printed document. Here's the total amount I've given you over the past 2 years. I slid it across the table. 54,480 yuan. Mom barely glanced at it. And I raised you for 18 years. Do you know how much that cost? Children aren't investments, Amber said quietly. You don't get a return when they grow up. That's naive, Mom replied. Of course they are. Why else would anyone have them? The room fell silent again. I looked at my sister and saw the same realization dawning on her face that I felt in my gut. Mom had never seen us as people to love unconditionally. We were assets, resources to be managed and exploited. You need to leave, I said, standing up. Both of you. Stephen, Amber started, but I shook my head. I need some time to process this. Mom, you made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. So that's it? Mom's voice cracked slightly. You're just going to abandon me when I have nowhere to go? You have options, I said firmly. You can sell some of those designer clothes, downsize to an apartment you can actually afford with your substantial retirement income, get a part-time job if you need extra money. I'm 64 years old, she protested, and perfectly capable of supporting yourself, Amber added, surprising me with her solidarity. We'll help you find a new place, Mom, but it needs to be something within your actual budget, and no more handouts. Mom looked between us, clearly searching for a crack in our united front. Finding none, she gathered her purse and stood up. I never thought my own children would treat me this way, she said, her voice thick with practiced martyrdom. After everything I've sacrificed. That manipulation doesn't work anymore, I said quietly. We see you now. The real you. As Amber walked Mom to the door, I heard her whisper, "I'll call you tomorrow to help with apartment listings." When they were gone, I sat in the silence of my apartment, feeling strangely empty, not sad exactly. More like I'd finally put down a weight I'd been carrying for years without realizing how heavy it had become. My phone buzzed with a text from Amber, asterisk. "Are we terrible people?" Asterisk. I typed back, asterisk. "No, we're just not enablers anymore." Asterisk. A moment later, another text. Asterisk. "Mom's crying in my car. Says we're ungrateful." Asterisk. I replied, asterisk. "Classic manipulation. Stay strong." Asterisk. 3 dots appeared as she typed, disappeared, then appeared again. Asterisk. I found more. "She's been telling Aunt Martha you never visit while telling us she's too busy to see you. Playing us all against each other." Asterisk. I wasn't even surprised anymore. Asterisk. "We'll get through this together." Asterisk. I wrote back. Asterisk. "United front from now on." Asterisk. I closed my eyes and realized I was finally free, not just from the financial burden, but from the constant need for approval I'd never receive. The laptop I'd bought with my own money sat on the table, a symbol of my new priority, taking care of myself first. 3 days after the confrontation in my apartment, Mom's landlord called me. I recognized the name from the eviction paperwork Amber had shown me. "Mr. Stevens, this is Robert Keller from Oakwood Heights. Your mother listed you as an emergency contact." I pinched the bridge of my nose, already knowing where this was heading. "What can I do for you, Mr. Keller? Your mother hasn't vacated the apartment as required. The sheriff will be here tomorrow to enforce the eviction, and I wanted to give you a heads up. There are personal belongings that will be placed on the curb if no one removes them beforehand." I closed my eyes, picturing Mom's furniture and possessions scattered across the sidewalk for anyone to pick through. Despite everything, I couldn't let that happen. "I'll be there this afternoon," I said, already calculating how many hours I'd need to take off work. When I arrived at Mom's apartment, she was sitting in her living room surrounded by half-packed boxes, staring blankly at the wall. The place looked nothing like I'd expected. Instead of the organized, pristine space she'd always maintained, clothes and belongings were strewn everywhere. "Mom?" I called from the doorway. She turned slowly, her eyes red-rimmed. "Come to gloat?" "No. I came to help you pack before they put everything on the sidewalk tomorrow." For a moment I thought she might argue, but instead, her shoulders slumped. "I don't know where to go," she admitted quietly. I set down my keys. "Amber and I found you a place. It's a 1-bedroom in Westridge. The rent is $1,100, which you can afford on your own with your retirement income." "Westridge?" Her nose wrinkled. "That's where the community college students live." "It's where people on fixed incomes live," I corrected her. "It's clean, safe, and within your budget." We packed in silence for nearly an hour before she spoke again. "I never thought I'd end up here," she said, carefully wrapping a crystal figurine in newspaper. "Your father promised me I'd be taken care of. Dad left you well provided for," I replied, taping up a box of books. "You chose to live beyond those means." She didn't argue this time. Progress, maybe. The move took 2 full days. Amber rented a truck, and I hired 2 college students to help with the heavy lifting. Mom complained about the smaller space, the outdated kitchen, the lack of a soaking tub in the bathroom, but beneath the complaints, I sensed something else: fear. As we unpacked the last of her kitchen items, I handed her a piece of paper. "What's this?" she asked suspiciously. "Information for a therapist who specializes in financial issues and family dynamics. First appointment is next Tuesday at 2 p.m. "I don't need therapy," she scoffed. "It's non-negotiable, Mom. Amber and I will help you get settled, but only if you get help." She stared at the paper for a long moment before folding it carefully and placing it in her purse. "Fine." 2 weeks later, we sat in Dr. Melissa Chen's office, Mom, Amber, and me, for our first family therapy session. Mom had already attended 2 individual sessions, and Dr. Chen thought it was time to bring us all together. "Eleanor," Dr. Chen began, using Mom's first name, "would you like to share what we discussed in your last session?" Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair, fingers twisting in her lap. "I've been controlling with money, and critical of my children." Amber and I exchanged glances. This was more self-awareness than Mom had shown in decades. "And why do you think that is?" Dr. Chen prompted gently. Mom took a deep breath. "I grew up with nothing. My parents could barely feed us some months. When I married your father, I finally had security. After he died, I was terrified of going back to that poverty. So you manipulated us into supporting you," I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "Stephen," Dr. Chen cautioned, "let's focus on understanding before judging." "I was afraid," Mom admitted, her voice cracking. "And yes, I manipulated you both. I criticized everything because nothing ever felt secure enough. If I could find fault with a $3,000 party, then surely you could do better, earn more, give more." The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. "That doesn't make it right," Amber said softly. "No, it doesn't," Mom agreed, surprising us both. "I've spent my whole life thinking security came from money and control. Dr. Chen is helping me see that I've actually destroyed my real security, my relationship with both of you." I felt something shift inside me, not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of understanding. Over the next month, things began to change. Mom started volunteering at a community center near her new apartment, something she'd never done before. She claimed it was just to get out of the house, but Amber spotted her genuinely enjoying helping seniors with computer skills. I established clear boundaries. No more financial support, but I'd visit once a week for dinner. Mom struggled with the new rules at first, occasionally dropping hints about expenses or making passive-aggressive comments about my fancy new laptop. But when I'd immediately stand up to leave, she'd quickly backtrack. One evening, Riley asked to come with me to visit her grandmother. "Are you sure?" I asked, remembering how Mom had barely acknowledged Riley at the infamous party. "Yeah," she said with a shrug. "Aunt Amber says Grandma's trying to be better. Plus, I want to show you something." At Mom's apartment, Riley pulled out her phone and showed me a series of texts from Mom, asking about her school activities and friends. The last one read, asterisk, "I'm sorry I didn't appreciate your beautiful party. Your uncle worked very hard to make it special for you." Asterisk. I glanced at Mom, who was busy in the kitchen pretending not to watch our reaction. "She's been texting me every few days," Riley whispered. "It's weird, but kinda nice." After dinner, while Riley helped Mom with dishes, I noticed a small framed photo on the bookshelf that hadn't been there before. Riley at her sweet 16, standing next to the cake, beaming with happiness. Amber and I met for coffee the following Saturday. She slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" I asked, opening it to find spreadsheets and budget templates. Our financial literacy plan, she explained. I realized I've been almost as bad with money as mom, just in different ways. I've been taking this online course, and I thought maybe we could do it together. I smiled. Is this your way of saying I was right all along? Don't push it, she laughed, swatting my arm. But seriously, I never want Riley to feel burdened the way mom made us feel. I want to break the cycle. We spent 2 hours reviewing our finances, setting goals, and making plans. It felt good, like reclaiming something that had been taken from us. Mom's third therapy session coincided with a major breakthrough. Dr. Chen called me afterward with mom's permission. She's doing the work, Stephen, she said. Today she identified that her criticism of others stems from her own insecurity. She's beginning to recognize when she's about to manipulate someone. That's surprising, I admitted. Healing isn't linear, and she'll have setbacks, but I wanted you to know she's genuinely trying. With the money I'd saved from not supporting mom, I finally bought the laptop I needed. The first project I completed on it earned me a promotion at work, something that might not have happened if I'd still been stretching myself thin financially. One night, as I was setting up my new equipment, I calculated exactly how much I'd given mom over the years, $54,480, enough for a down payment on a small condo. Enough to have started my own business. Enough to have changed the trajectory of my life in countless ways. But strangely, I didn't feel bitter anymore. That money had bought me something valuable after all the realization that I deserved better, and the courage to demand it. 3 months after the confrontation, we gathered for dinner at Amber's place. Mom, Amber, Riley, and me. The conversation was stilted at first, everyone carefully avoiding sensitive topics. But as the evening progressed, something shifted. Riley told a story about school that made mom laugh genuinely. Amber and I exchanged glances, both recognizing how rare that sound had become. As we cleared the dishes, mom pulled me aside. I've been wanting to tell you something, she said, her voice low. That party you threw for Riley? It wasn't cheap. It was perfect. I was jealous that you could create something so meaningful without spending a fortune. It reminded me of how much I'd lost by focusing on appearances rather than what matters. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, she continued. I'm just trying to be honest now. One day at a time, Mom, I replied, surprising myself with how much I meant it. As I drove home that night, I realized something important. I'd spent years trying to buy Mom's approval, only to discover it wasn't for sale. The moment I stopped trying to purchase her love was the moment I finally found my own worth. Some debts can never be repaid, some shouldn't be. And sometimes, the most valuable thing money can buy is the freedom to walk away from toxic relationships, even when they're with the people who are supposed to love you most.